Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed. We are in the philosophical midwifery book. Once again, it's very late where I'm at. Welcome to the people joining in the chat. The Blues Festival is happening where I am, and I have been out playing music, but even though it's going to be quiet, I'll take it where I can get it. In terms of these podcasts, I'll take what you can get, as Pierre Grimes, the author of the book, famously says all the time. Take what you can get. So, we have just finished chapter 2, which is the chapter called the Pathologos. So what I want to do is maybe quickly go over the last two sections of what we read together, which is section 10, the Logos, and section 11. There are 11 parts in chapter 2. Actually, let's just start from there. Let's have a look at these 11 parts to jog our memory of where we've gone so far in this chapter. And let's quickly do a lightning round review of the last two that are the most recent. Let's jump over there. And of course, any questions in the chat, feel free to ask. The whole point of this channel is to introduce this strange way of being that these weirdos in California were practicing, which is how to become rational and solve our problems. And as we read last time, reach our highest excellence or the full measure of man. How do we become mature and rational both individually and collectively as the next stage of our evolution? So, So everybody who's, the whole point of streaming is people come in at different stages. There are a lot of videos in the playlists on YouTube, and you can find a link. If you're watching on Twitch, you can find a link to the YouTube site. But there are so many things. Who's going to go through all that? So, if you have any questions from wherever you're at, feel free to ask, and I'll try and make it as clear as I can. Only so that from that clarity can be your confusion. Or so can you, from that, can you give rise to questions that you have about yourself, about your highest goals, about your problems, about how to solve them, and maybe even questions about what if we do become free of our problems, what next? Quo vidas, what we say in Latin, because we're clever. In other words, is there another exercise that we are now free to participate in that we are here to do as human beings? And can we understand why that must be the case? So it's not a belief, but also, as it's an exercise, we have to, as we've been reading, confirm our understanding in our direct experience. In fact, that's the prerequisites for being able to solve our problems. Because as last time we went over the idea that a problem is specifically that which prevents you from your highest goals. And there was actually a list that we can put on our fridge of things that if we're doing it, we can recognize we're in a problem. And they're all to do with all the time pursuing your single most highest goal, it seems. Because look here. The signs and characteristics of encountering the Pathologos are the following. Number 1, setting secondary goals as if they were primary. Just mess with this EQ a little bit. I don't like how it sounds. It's a bit better to me. Setting secondary goals as if they're primary. Number 2, making practical issues significant in your the significant goal of your life. Your life is about some sort of learning or nurturing, necessarily, for there to be meaning and purpose to our existence. And the intelligence and guidance along that path to recognize this, that's the art we're learning. So, secondary goals as if they're primary, making practical issues your primary focus. Then you've got a problem. Failing to achieve with excellence. So, best thing in the best way. Not preparing adequately for your goals, losing concentration and energy, being unable to resist distraction. So, before in the prep, during in the concentration and energy, during being resisting distractions from what you're doing in the moment, blaming others or excuses for not achieving. So this would be after. Being unable to maintain the goal after having reached your goal with excellence in this way. Maybe you did all that, but before and after you had some sort of stress and anxiety. That's an evidence of a problem. That's an evidence of something that's not you and you don't need. It's just in the way, but on purpose in the way for you to discover something about the problem, the puzzle that you are carrying that you have yet to solve completely, or solved in the way that you are here to solve. And letting go of opportunities or sabotaging, self-sabotage, sabotaging opportunities for success. So we've got a pretty strict criteria of what constitutes a problem. So in order to free ourselves from our problems, we have to have this for our goal. Otherwise, we can be, number 1, setting a secondary goal as if it was primary and not recognize it as an issue or problem. Because I'm not aiming for this kind of level of excellence. In which case you won't be able to surface and free your problems. It's kind of neat though that it's all very positive. It's like the biggest I believe in you, attaboy, go get them. Get them, go get them, Tiger. You can do it. For you, because it's saying, hey, excellence at the top. Best activity, completely transcendent and eternal, about yourself in the highest way. Good prep and no stress before, during, or after. Just doing your best to solve these problems with excellence and master the art of doing that with excellence. That's what I expect from you, son and daughter, says the universe that has created and is sustaining this, and is bestowing the information needed for us to go through that process. So the understanding that we are gaining, we call it the logos, and the care that's been extended through it that we are learning to recognize, we can call that providence. Right. So let's go back before we go back to there. Okay, let us begin this chapter. No. Okay, let's start from here. And nail down once again the 11 parts to this chapter. Let us begin then and say that philosophical midwifery identifies and describes the nature of a newly identified class of human problems. The Pathologos. To make this clear, we will explore the Pathologos along the following 11 dimensions. Is that a clue to how many dimensions there are in reality, or is it just there are 11 categories? It may not be a clue about there being 11 dimensions ultimately in reality, as reported by someone having freed themselves from the Pathologos, but it does point to a list of 11, and so we can wonder why 11. And why not 8? To match the thing that seems to be the model we're using all the time with the logos, the dialectic. Okay, number 1, the nature of the Pathologos. Number 2, the condition and transmission of that we have defined. Number 3, amnesia. You forget. Which is interesting because you can say that also mirrors the forgetting that also humans get. Not this childhood forgetting, but birth forgetting, where we forget the previous incarnations we've had and where our soul was before this one. And which is essential to what we also read in this chapter, that therefore one of the things we are here to do is to recover that memory of the past while learning what we need here in the present for what we will need in the future. Doing the learning in the present for the future. Need to drink some water. So if part of our learning, as we've been reading in the Mino, is remembering what our soul once knew before we came here, there is a kind of amnesia requiring us to go through philosophy, mastering the dialectic applied to truth or reality or self, in order to remember knowledge that our soul knows from before we were incarnated. So there's a kind of amnesia of a forgetting of that knowledge, mirrored by this kind of forgetting the nature of the introduction to our problem, forgetting our conclusions, forgetting perhaps that we are in a loop. Anyway, that's amnesia. The wordless transmission, there we go. One of the reasons we're on a hunt to find something that we can't remember is we didn't put words on it. The many series of interconnected, supporting false beliefs that maintain our problem, our being stuck to fate, that can be identified as a single image of yourself that you think you are. That's a conclusion you made, which is great because that means you are the only one who can unmake it. But it was made wordlessly. Which is funny or interesting because words or logos is understanding and what we're here to do and what we need to do. So we have to learn how to use words and put them on that situation that we weren't able to put words on before. Or, yeah. Blame and anger, huge. Huge. You can't even start to become rational without addressing blame and anger. Blame because there are two fundamental approaches to existence. Seeing problems as puzzles to be solved, and then we could go further and define that more specifically using the logos, specifically going for our highest goals with most excellence, recognizing the highest art being midwifery and applying it to dream analysis. Those But at its core, it's understanding everything as a puzzle to be solved. And everything else is what is the most fun, true, noble, good friendly way of solving puzzles. One approach to reality. The other approach to reality is problems are things to be interpreted in a way that can justify inflicting suffering. Specifically, the suffering that was inflicted on me in my Pathologos scene that I haven't recognized and I haven't addressed because I wasn't doing the first thing. Option A. So blame is that option B. You have your problems because it's your fault. Hang on a second. Wasn't it wordless? What about this amnesia? What about the fact that we are forced to have a pathologos? It's part of the human condition. There seems to be a greater forces at work than just you being a naughty person who has a human condition. That's pretty messed up thing to say. That's what blame is, and we understood that in that chapter. Intimidation as well. The stages involved in are all baby brain stuff. The false idea that there's one cause when there are many that need to be understood to be just a mature person. And the cause is you. And the cause is you're innately bad or a sinner or a criminal. And we talked about how, well, every system of oppression has their word that does this. It's called intimidation. It's stupid on every level, and it doesn't actually, therefore, do any help, but it's harmful. That's what it is. It's harmful. And it functions to prevent A. It's very difficult to reflect on puzzles when you're being shouted at because you're a naughty boy or whatever, or suffering from homelessness because you were born as one of the poors, which is actually a very easy thing to happen because there's more of us than there are of the 3,000 billionaires. So maybe we could all be millionaires instead of 3,000 billionaires. That's my suggestion, one of many anyway. Again, that's moot. That approach to solving human problems, which would require us to be mature and rational, requires us to know what it means to be mature and rational. It's A. Things that happen, or even problems, are simply intelligible puzzles to be solved. That's why we're here. And let's have fun doing that. Option B is no fun, instead suffering. And the teaching of the enjoying of inflicting suffering if you're the person doing the inflicting, which is sadism. So torture, suffering, and sadism is option B, or we call punishment or blame. And any institution that seeks to oppress needs to justify violence, and you can justify violence with this, the blame game. To make all those false statements in a line in order to say, therefore you are a bad person, and it's not a lack of understanding, because that would require us to reflect and understand. No, it's you're innately bad and you deserve to suffer, and I'm going to be the one who gets to do it. Stupid, harmful, sadistic, everything wrong with that. But that's where we're at currently. We have to make the jump. Or say, well, we've played B for a while. Let's try B. Let's try A for, I don't know. Let's give us 20 years. And if we're not wowed, let's go back to being terrible. Always. In fact, yesterday, or last episode, we talked about how that movement from being terrible always, or Pathologos' way of being, to having fun, living in a great world, or the Logos, to be bound by the Logos, is the essence of drama. And you can have fun looking for that in the various ways that it may be depicted. Oh, and you could use that as a standard if you want to become a film critic, I suppose, too. Anyway, blame and anger. So you have to recognize all this before you even start, because midwifery is putting yourself in situations where you will make mistakes. So if you ever believe in any sort of punishment or blame or anger, which is a misdirection of, we'll stick with blame for now, then you can't ever learn, because you can't ever make a mistake, because you've agreed to a game in which if you make a mistake you suffer. Therefore you can't learn. You have to lie about knowing everything, like Donald Trump. So no clip chimping or slip chimping, or no debate bro shit, or no I win or getting owned or getting sued or any of that. It's not ever going to help. It can't help. It can only perpetuate the problem. That's number 5. Blame and anger. I think we also recognize that anger, the anger that comes up is a kind of message to a similarity, something that's analogous or like the thing you're really angry about, the injustice that your soul suffered at the formation of this Pathologos. The struggle over discussing the Pathologos. That was interesting, because I was thinking when we got to this part, I like talking about it, because you have to talk about it to learn this stuff and maintain it. Remember, that's one of the signs of a problem, is being unable to maintain your successes. But I think it actually turned out to be discussing your insights or your successes with family members, or discussing the excitement over discovering this art, or maybe even just discussing the scenes themselves and what's required for that, and the maturity and the courage. Anyway, sounds like an interesting section that we did. Feel free to go back to the playlist and redo it again. Right.
It's a win-win.
The Pathologos defended and condemned. Sounds fun. Inner dialogues and dreams. So there is a inner dialogues and dreams. I'm not sure if this is from this section, but it does. If I was to guess, we should probably do a better review. But the Pathologos itself is maintained through our inner dialogues, or the kaka daemon, the bad daemon. That's the thing that we have to learn how to address as we would a friend. Don't believe what it says, but address it fairly, and every attack or criticism it makes. But the messages we get in our dreams provide the content we need to solve the mystery of our problem that is being maintained by our everyday inner dialogues. So like you could say dreams give you the positive, like the direction of what to look at and the content to solve the puzzle, because of how artful and rich the providential nature of dreams are. So there's that connection with your Pathologos, but also the connection within a dialogues. It's connected to the Pathologos because, well, it keeps it alive. Keeps your problem going. Somehow, every moment, well, this whole reality we find ourselves in, and the more we do this, the more profound and intelligible we are discovering it is, wants us to keep our goddamn problem. If I was a dinosaur, I would say, I don't want my problem. Go away. And it does so by these inner dialogues, which reflect the voice of the Pathologos and can play out our fantasies, our tangents, our... However, if we catch ourselves, we can stop that tangent and that going down that path by recognizing that everything that will play out in the drama can be seen in the self-image of the character at the beginning, which is what we discovered at the end of this chapter when we saw that the Pathologos itself, the various beliefs that are intertwined to maintain it and to support it and to mold it in various ways as we got growing up, as well as the various ways it manifests itself, the various kinds of dramas, the different areas of your life, but it's the same paradigm, it's the same thing, it's the same drama, following perhaps the same steps. We will have to see that for ourselves. Drink some water. So behind all of the expressions and the individual beliefs, there is a single Pathologos, or they all come together into or can be seen as aspects or expressions of a single self-image. So the self-image is what we think we are. So if our tangents are going to have any power to sway us, it has to start with the main character being you. You can't start a fantasy of your neighbors or Tom Cruise. So that's true of our Pathologos image of ourself that we are learning this art to become free of. So too can we catch that image at the start of our tangents and fantasies or inner dialogues before they even play out to prevent there being a need for us to play them out. Because the playing out is, these are the implications if you don't address this. Alright, well, let's just address it. So I recognize that it's a problem just because it's a distraction from my highest functioning and my highest goal. Myself, being my most authentic self. And expressing that, so knowing and showing the self. So I'm not going to even get into the drama. Let's look at the image that's the beginning of it. And this is also a technique that people familiar with the logos and midwifery always do in meditation. Because if you recognize, well, that's what every tangent is, then how many tangents do you want when you're sitting on the mat for 2 hours in a meditation hall? My answer would be as little as possible. So if you catch yourself on such a thing and you've got a notebook under your cushion and a pencil there as well, take the notes, and I guess that will be a skill that you'll develop the more you get in this game, of that original self-image. I get the message, I know it's a problem, and I will promise to address it in midwifery whenever I do midwifery each day. Now, maybe you will stop getting that kind of distraction. Anyway, that's the connection of our inner dialogues and our maintaining our problem and our dreams that give us what we need to solve our problems. Meaning and the Pathologos. I don't even remember, so I am going to scroll down because I like the word meaning. Meaning. What is meaning? Meaning. It's a big one, isn't it? We come into... Okay. Let's just see the beginning of this chapter. Meaning and the Pathologos. 9th, I have participated in thousands of talks and reviewed many more. I always pay careful attention to the origin of each Pathologos. Subjects I have worked with have included people of many races and backgrounds, and the summary of my findings is simple to state. We come into the world with a deep respect and profound attraction to the presence of virtues, the virtues. No one introduced us to these ideas of truth, justice or fairness, sincerity and beauty, nor taught us about them, nor can we recall gathering them up from experience. But it is this very respect for those virtues that this primary condition for that is the primary condition for the imposition of the Pathologos. So part of the rational exploration of why we're here would involve rationally and maturely recognizing, oh crap, even for us to have this problem that we're here to address, we're born seeking those things and remembering them in some way. We brought that with us. That's our compass. That's where we're headed. What we're seeking. For it to be usurped by the false image of said things. I've never found two identical Pathologos. Each comes up with our unique interpretation. It's not something we're taught. This uniqueness is not a mark of each person's particular cherished viewpoint, nor is it a function of the relativity of each person's perceptions, unless we acknowledge that those unique interpretations are always wrong, since they are based upon the Pathologos, which is false belief. Right. So each Pathologos isn't different because of the belief. Everything is relative to a perspective or viewpoint. Everything is relative. Very common false belief of our time. There is no truth. Just pick whatever religion or just pick whatever president. Doesn't matter. So it can't be that, because we know, because of what we've been reading, that everyone's perspective is based on the Pathologos, as that's what it means to be human. So they're all wrong. Not they're all right, which is relativity. They're all equally right. No, they're all equally wrong. So people say we're all entitled to their own opinion. They're crazy. They're missing the point. No. Opinions aren't they're all right and therefore something you want and feel you should be entitled to, a good thing. It's the opposite. They're all wrong. Everyone's wrong. You gotta be. That's why blame is stupid, and you have to remove it at the beginning of any kind of mature learning of any sort. You can't learn math if every time you make a mistake in an equation, you get punched in the nose by your math teacher, or fired, or sent to prison, or fined, or all these systems of oppression to maintain the Pathologos way of addressing human relationships and our relationship with ourselves and the planet. that whole thing breaks down before even having to play it out. What's the implications of living in a world with punishment or justice being some sort of retribution? Sometimes they call it retributive justice. Less Prozac, more Plato, sure. We don't have to play it out. We can go back to the original principle, just like we do. We learn this practice by applying it to ourselves to remove the primary principle or cause of our problem, our pathologos. So too in reality, we can address the principle of punishment as side B, pathologos expression, pathologos way of relating to problems. So we don't have to do it anymore. Hooray. Just like when you're meditating and you write out the information you need to write out about the image in the fantasy of your daydream, you don't have to go through the fantasy and you can just go back to your breathing or your mantra or whatever it is you're doing when you're meditating. Or any activity. It doesn't have to be meditating. And also it's the principle that allows us to solve our problems. Once we've sufficiently understood that primary principle, for problems it's the false idea of self. We no longer have to play out the implications of that in our reality. Being forced to be in it because, hey, newsflash, you don't choose your beliefs. You don't choose the thoughts that come up. You don't choose your random distracting thoughts and your inner dialogues. They're happening. So how do you turn them off? If they are in their nature distracting and false. And we better be able to turn it off, otherwise the implications it would be we live in a cruel universe. It has an intelligibility, but extends its, like there is an understandable pattern that we can learn, but if we can't solve the problem, if we can't turn off the repeating cycles of failures, the implications that follow, then there is an intelligibility without it extending a goodness. That sounds horrible. Logos and providence go together. We've been talking about that earlier today as well. And part of that principle is if you sufficiently understand the cause or principle or primary idea of self, then you are free from being bound to those thoughts, those distractions, those tangents, those sabotage, those self-sabotages, the setting of secondary goals, the stress before and after, etc., etc. In the chat, we end up like Schopenhauer. If we think life is all about suffering, oof, goodness. Yes, very, very terrible. And that's the blame game. That's why you have to start by saying, no, the blame game, or approaching reality that everything experienced are ways of finding justifications to inflict suffering under punishment, which is how we currently solve problems in our society. And every institution has it. Any domination authority or pathologos based system, like capitalists will say, no, you need to be oppressed through money because you're bad, because you are greedy. That's why capitalism works. The police, no, you need to all be siphoned into the prison as you have to do crimes because of extreme wealth inequality because of capitalism. And we get to inflict that violence, and because we blame you, that's intimidation. Ignore all the actual causes to blame a person, and the second part is, and the blame is you are innately bad. So it's not something you just haven't learnt yet and we can help you by just helping you learn or unlearn. No, you're just an evil, nasty person. So every war has that. Like the Palestinians are being called savages or apes or whatever. That's the blame game, side B. So the cops say you're all criminals, so you need us. The economists, you're all greedy, you need capitalism. Religion, you're all innately sinners, you need our oppression. And we can, because of what we've read so far, we can recognize that as an approach to reality is the expression of the Pathologos. So one is a logos approach to solving problems and the other is a pathologos. Logos being look for the intelligibility, that's what logos is, because it's and logos bestows providence. So not only is it understandable or intelligible, but everything you're being sent is a puzzle that can be solved to help you. So there's the intelligible and caring or providential. You live in a smart, friendly universe that really cares about you. That's side A. Side B is the pathologos, which is lie and string together a web of lies. Number one, your single cause, whatever minority we want to oppress, or whatever person we want to oppress. You're poor because you're bad, or you need religion because you're a sinner. Single cause, which is stupid because there are many causes, including especially the logos. Many different societal factors as well. Many different causes. It's dumb. And also the magical singular cause is characterized by you being innately bad or evil or wrong or sinful or selfish. Every institution has one. Or a sand N-word is what they called the Iraqis, when etc. There's a choice. Do we want to approach the world according to the logos or pathologos? And if we understand that choice, then it's not really a choice, is it? Because not choosing, thumbs down for saying it's a choice, not choosing the rational one that can actually solve problems and actually objectively makes everyone better is one of those qualities that we looked at last time that you are in a problem. You're not setting a high enough goal. If you're choosing side B, why are you choosing the shit one? That's a problem. That's not excellence. Therefore, even choosing side B proves you need to actually have side A. So it's not really a choice. It's a precondition to start the learning, the healing, the growing, the evolving process, which is no blame, no ever, no intimidation, no blame, no punishments. Fuck right off with that. Pathologos lies to justify inflicting human suffering only because the pathologos thinks that's what it means to be knowing, because you took the blame for them doing it to you when you didn't know how to use the logos well. So not only is it stupid, harmful, and wrong, we understand why it's attractive and why it's picked. The pathologos, which is what? The false image of knowing that we want to play out by inflicting the same bullshit suffering, finding whatever conditions, have a kid, to do that. Because we are born into this world seeking from a soul, seeking the virtues of truth, fairness, justice, sincerity, beauty. We're born seeking that. Hey, welcome. What about invoking the Ideon of the Holy Logos. I don't understand what you mean, but can you say more? Put more words on it. Sounds interesting. So we would say the self-logos. Because holy, if holy refers to God or the divine, you can ask questions about, well, hang on a second. For there to be a creator God that has these qualities, is all-knowing, exists, has an effective capability, that's a whole list of qualities. For there to be a list of qualities working together, there are some even more primary principles that need to be in place. Therefore, metaphysically, there are higher dimensions than the holy. And we call that movement from the divine, or that which is eternal, the movement from the idea of the good or the experience of the good to the good self, or the one self. So we say the self-logos. Because hey, doesn't even God have a selfhood? Speaking of self-logos, that's what we're learning here. We're learning the art of the self-logos. And it may be only here that we can learn it. And we are being forced, as we're seeing with the dreams and the random thoughts we have and our inner dialogues, we are being forced to master this art if we are ever going to free ourselves from our problem. And there's kind of a built-in timer or countdown clock. Because of the unique conditions of our human evolution, we have evolved technology that can allow our pathologos to be played out with the extinction of our whole species, before having gained the maturity to understand the nature of the pathologos and midwifery. So we're in an interesting planet and species and point of history in that planet where there's a fire sale on the self-logos. And lucky for us, we have that option. We're doing it. So good for us.
It's a win-win. A win-win-win-win-win.
Right, and that whole process, you can't even begin until you understand the nature of blame and side B, or retributive justice or punishment. Because you can't even get in the door if you're carrying that with you. Because we are looking for problems. We're actually going out of our way to find ourselves in problems. So if anyone is saying, oh, a problem, now I can make fun of you, now I can gang up on you, now I can mock you, now I can threaten you, now I can beat you up, now I can punish you, now I can genocide you, now I can take all your oil. Oh, yeah. Any of that is never ever going to fit, ever. You can't get in the door with that, because we want to say, oh, you got a problem? Exciting, let's understand it. Let's reflect on it in a certain kind of a way to see why it was sent to you exactly when you needed to get the message. And then tomorrow you're going to go for an even higher goal because you've learned some more. Whatever you're going to do is going to be even better tomorrow. And you're going to see if we have sufficiently understood that puzzle in our reflection. Because if we have, you won't have that problem anymore. And if you do, an excuse for another coffee and another chat. And that's it. That's the story of human culture now. That's how we are. That's our way of being. Which means no war and any conflict. Okay, there are two conditions required for the pathologos. General factors common to all mankind. We all get a pathologos, so no more blaming or punishing. Stupid. Stupid. You get it, and you're forced to keep it, and all your dreams are about it, or most of them. I think at 80%. That's a different talk, because there are other sorts of dreams, but we can go into that later. There's always something unique that makes every individual Pathologos unique. In comparing the content of each Pathologos, it's possible to discover that how do we account for the individuality that is the distinctive mark of each Pathologos? We either gained it from experience or it came with us. If it's innate, it'll be common and not unique. So we can conclude that there are clearly two conditions for the Pathologos: the general factors, the principle of Pathologos, and the presence and perception of the signs of those virtues. There has to be a soul or a self as a soul going through that, or becoming able to perceive the physical world and have that act of perception with a kind of soul that's seeking those qualities or those virtues, such that when those images or imitation of truth, virtue, goodness, knowingness become present and are perceived, and individual factors or differences which are necessary for the particular and unique expressions of the Pathologos. Right, okay, so both of those first two things were the universal. It has to be the principle of the Pathologos and some active agent playing out the unfolding of reality to have you as a soul in this expression of self or expression of reality. It's got to be the principles, and they're got to be you doing the thing. Now, uniquely, there are individual factors that are necessary for the unique and particular expression of the Pathologos. And that's why we gain different roles, blah, 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 blah. But what are we looking for? Let's go to the end. What's the conclusion? Our existence here has given us the task, which is to overcome the effects of the communications that have turned us away from pursuing what is right. In the return, we recover what we lost. When we return about in this kind of level of reflection, we recover what we had lost, and that is a recollection of what we had forgotten about justice, knowledge, and sound-mindedness. Interesting. The effect of resolving the distorted communications is at the same time a truer recollection of those virtues. Interesting it is that these two things that Plato cites as the value of gaining an earthly existence, since only here can the soul gain a training in these very things. What two things? Dissolving the distorted, dissolving the Pathologos, and at the same time gaining a true recollection of the self-logos and its aspects like beauty, justice, truth. And Plato says this is why we have an earthly existence, and it's only here that the soul can gain a training in these things. Prior to this existence, it is said, the soul missed the opportunity to see the most splendid and blessed of mysteries, and if it is to complete its spiritual evolution, it needs to return.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
It's right here in this reading, because if it needs to return to where it can gain the necessary training. Thus, for the Platonists, the problems we face today are our lessons for tomorrow. The art of midwifery turns us around to focus on our existence, for to understand the forces and ideas that operate in our problems. Let me turn on my trackpad. Do I? No. I thought if I trackpad it over, I could see what these words are, but they're not. They're just gone. Okay. That's my shoddy copier work. To understand the forces and ideas that operate in our problems. Oh no, it's not. It's the end of the word. It's just hyphenated. Okay. Keep going. We must turn our attention around, ousia, and reflect on the things that escaped our notice. This turning about of our very being is called in Greek ousia. See? See what? I don't know. I was a sentence ahead. And in that motion there is a turning about of the mind towards a reality beyond mere physical existence. Another way of expressing this is to say that in our present existence we can reach out and touch ousia through the art of philosophical midwifery.
Beat a kid in Walmart.
Back to the channel. I was muted for a while. I don't know how long for. Apparently not for very long. But I'm just going to pick it up here and hope that I can put it together in post.
Keep that lil smug.
Right, so this section, which is number 9, meaning and pathologos, I guess we can understand as the meaning of the pathologos itself. Why even have pathologos? Why do we have this? Oh, noise. Hello, welcome. Hey, welcome thank you for following. Embrace. Glad to have you here. There's also a Discord that you're welcome to join if you like as well. There's a link below. Right, so we all get a pathologos, a false idea of the self that causes our problems, causes us to choose that side B, to approach to reality, which is harmful, of course, and can bring the end of our species. We need to learn side A, which is the art of the logos, approach to solving problems, to look for the rationality and care, or realize all problems are a puzzle to be solved. And this is something forced upon us, or it's something inherent. I don't know if it's forced upon us. Our soul probably chose it. I'm not talking about that. But it's just what it means to be human. And given that, we can come to some conclusions about why we're here. Specifically that there are universal features of the pathologos. There has to be the principles, and there has to be some expression of self going through it to meet the conditions of those principles for it to come into its existence. Not eternal existence. It's not eternal. No. But for as much as our life is sucking, it's there. And the fact that each pathologos is unique tells us that our soul comes in here with, like, every person matters. Or meaning. So the title of this one is Meaning and Pathologos. Every life is meaningful. Every life has meaning because every pathologos is unique. Whatever that soul needed to learn, it came in here to learn it, and it brought it with you. So that's two kinds of things that we bring with us. They're both, the universal attraction towards the being. So the qualities that we learn in philosophy: justice, beauty, goodness, knowingness, truth. We're brought in seeking that, allowing us to be duped. And we brought in a kind of way of interpreting things unique to our soul, that even if you were in the exact same scene with an identical twin, you would come away with a different false belief about yourself, indicating, that's why you're here. So the author says the learning that we're here to do here is for our ability to function better tomorrow in our, I guess, after we do our job here, higher levels of incarnation, or hey, maybe while you're alive, you can do all the things. I don't know. So tomorrow is a metaphor. So, and Plato says, and by the way, we can only do that learning here. And Plato says that's why we're here. Only here can we get this. This is what Plato says. That's why the soul. That's the soul's training. So the training is in this learning of the Logos, side A, and testing it. And that is a turning about, because you're participating in reason, but that turning about is part of the Logos. Turning about to reflect on yourself according to the Logos in this way. And I pushed something on my mouse. What happened? Nothing. What does happen if I push it? What does that do? Oh, it goes to the next page. Didn't know that was the thing. Oh, that does. Oh my goodness. Don't hit that button again. Oh, that button does. Okay. I'm discovering buttons on my mouse. Right, and in this existence, we can actually reach out and touch being itself. So we learn an art, which is a kind of reflection through the Logos and understanding, which frees us from what's false and teaches us what we need to touch a higher level of Usia, and that's being. So hooray. The number 10 says has all those wonderful qualities that you're left with. Like he talks about what it would be like to be your authentic true self, free of a false image of yourself, having completed that part of the work. So we talked about you can never play the blame game. You'll never want to inflict punishment ever to begin this game. But solving your Pathologos might be the beginning of something even greater. That was one of the questions we had. Nevertheless, to be free of the Pathologos, this was a very big section. We went through it several times. The Logos, the analogy of the Pathologos. When we recognize the Pathologos is applied in many situations, when they seem like analogous situations, we find a pattern of repeated failures that deprived us of the conditions for our growth and development. To break out of that pattern is no easy victory. To begin the process, we have to see the folly in the attempt to blame others. That's the big song and dance I've been doing today. Yeah, you got to realize no folly of blaming others. To begin the process, the futility in the bitter struggle for revenge. I guess that's the expression of anger. And we must realize that putting anger into the mix. And we must realize that in nursing grievances, understanding will escape us. We have to go for understanding. Our difficulties arise only because we have been treated, not only because we have been treated unjustly and betrayed, but also because, more light, maybe that's better. Oh, I got some spam. Ban. Our own difficulties arise not only because we have been treated unjustly and betrayed, but for a deeper reason. This is what has drained us of the power to deal spontaneously and meaningfully with our present. We know we have lost the roots of our identity. We have been shaped by forces foreign to our nature. But until we see precisely why this has happened to us, our anger will lash out and find scapegoats. It's all scapegoats. It's all, what do we call it? Projection. It's all projection and yeah, well, that's what it is, scapegoats. We struggle to regain our lost mode of being and to emerge fully in the act of pursuing and fulfilling our highest dreams is the utmost importance, and it calls upon us to be tested and shaped by the bravery and sincerity that we bring to this profound task. We're so brave, aren't we? And we're so sincere. So for all of you brave, sincere adventurers, I give you a round of applause.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Don't eat a monkey. So we're shaped by the bravery and sincerity we bring to this profound task. And I'm saying that jokingly, but we should celebrate that. I mean, well, it takes effort and discipline. I'm not the most charming chap. Wait, maybe I am. Ooh, that's a trick. Reverse psychology, you see. Even though I am the most charming chap, and this is the best stream on Twitch and YouTube, it still requires courage to stay with it and be confused and be puzzled and hear me use all these big words and go on and on and on. Or maybe not big words to you, maybe too many small words. I don't know. But you're here. If you're here, then you are here. And good for you. And that bravery and sincerity can test and shape you. As part of our learning process that we mentioned a moment ago. We must fight not only because no one else can remove our chains, but because in the end it is we alone who make the final judgment. So we have to make a judgment for ourselves that whatever we gained by our surrender was not worth what we lost. So that's number 10. And number 11, the final one, is the sign. Nature of the Pathologos 1, the condition and transmission 2, amnesia 3, the wordless transmission is number 4, number 5 is blame and anger, 6, the struggle over discussing the Pathologos, 7, the Pathologos defended and condemned, 8, inner dialogues and dreams, 9, meaning and the Pathologos, 10, the logos, and finally the signs of a Pathologos problem. How do you identify what your problem is so you can go through the process of freeing yourself from it and enjoying all those wonderful, lovely fruits that we talked about in number 10. Automatically and spontaneously dealing most appropriately to the situation with the full force of your being without any need for thinking or planning and any anxiety before or after. And maintaining that state of being and talking about it and sharing it with others. In other words, excellence as a way of being and functioning and relationship to your own self. So we could say loosely the first, second, and third hypotheses. Currently we're at the fourth, group think. Pathologos is a group think, clan group identity. What do the people, what do the family, what are the opinions and beliefs of the family clan? That's group think. Third hypothesis is what we need to move into. The hypotheses I'm talking about are the hypotheses of Parmenides. He outlines 9 stages of development that humans go through, collectively and individually. And number 3, third from the top is best, is the logos and providence. Number 3 is what we need to solve problems, which requires us to be brave and to be shaped by our courage to reach out and try and function in a way of being that we haven't yet evolved into. Or definitely not as a species. Individually, we're doing that now. So what? So, coffee. So, the third logos reason, the art, using words well, providentially, or the functioning of number 2, which is pure being, that ousia we just read about, reaching out and touching. So a higher state of being. And recognizing that its cause is the first hypothesis, the self. And it's the self logos that runs through. So it's the ousia of self logos that we can use to reflect on our problems, awaken to ousia, and then wonder about, use the logos to reflect on the parts and the understanding, to understand ousia itself, and realize that if ousia has parts, goodness, beauty, justice, it might be all at once, but if you can intellectually distinguish aspects, there must be a greater kind of ousia that is beyond parts. Like there's an ousia of knowing itself in pure being, there's its reflection and its creation of each moment of the physical world, and that the way it reflects is the logos, that's the art of the logos, or the third hypothesis, the most providential way that it, the greatest intelligence to create and sustain, as well as extend a benefit to all intelligent beings. So that's an unfolding kind of ousia, but using itself as the model. So it is turning upon itself to unfold. Turning upon itself for its own existence is the ousia that we're talking about as a state of being. But then a kind of ousia where you reflect on a higher cause is applying the logos even to that, opening the door to the self. Hooray.
Where's the joy? Where's the whim?
Hooray. Why am I talking about that? That knowing of the self of the first hypothesis, state of being of pure ousia, and functioning according to that beauty and justice, the true beauty, justice in everything you do, and using that model through the logos, or the first, second, and third hypotheses, are all the self logos, self being, and the one self. So it seems to fit how he's describing what it would be like to be free of the false image of the self. It sounds like you clear the space for that way of being, which is your authentic nature. Okay, so and any deviation from that as a way of being, or the steps that you need to reach that, is a mark of a problem. And it's important that we identify the steps to that highest goal, otherwise it's just a dream. But also, if we have the steps, we can recognize different aspects of the Pathologos, or different, like we talk about different aspects of being, different aspects of the Pathologos come up at different stages. And all that's information you are here to discover. To fully understand the Pathologos, how it functions, how it has different levels, which itself reflects, once you're free of that game, you can use that art and that activity to play the other game that you're now free to play, which is the same dialectic, not applied to the Pathologos, but applied to the Logos. What are the stages of human evolution, or what are the stages of psychic evolution, or what are the different expressions of the self, or different levels, the different stages, and what problems do they have? If you were to say, well, what's the stages? Well, those are the 9 hypotheses of Parmenides. So what's it like to be in the 9th? What problems are there? How do you move into the 8th? What are the problems there? Similar to what we do here, what's the first step in my steps needed to reach my highest goal? What are the problems that come up? Interesting. Write it down somewhere, look at it, wonder about it, talk to your friends about it over coffee. So, anything, the last one, anything in the way of that, and we can have a list here. Here's a list. The list setting secondary goals as if they're primary, blah, 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 all this list. This is how you can recognize that you are off that path, or you've reached that state of being but you weren't maintaining it. These are all evidence of a problem. So, here. So this is the question. Once you're free of the Pathologos, is that the same as the end of your human quest? Because we did say that, we did read earlier that Plato said there were two things that we're here to do. Purification and perfection. If the purification of what's false is midwifery, and this is what we read at the end. This is the last part of chapter 2. This is where we are. Freeing ourselves from the Pathologos, we can once again ask quo vadis, because we're smart Latin people. Or what now? Now that I'm free of that problem. Now I've stopped carrying that backpack full of issues that I project and dump on people through my false interpretation. And then all the cogs pieces have fallen into place, created the conditions for my drama to play out to its inevitable tragic end that I repeat endlessly over and over, the great tragedy and suffering. Once I'm free of that, what now? Being free of our fate, is there a destiny? So fate is when you're trapped, destiny is your highest, most meaningful goal. Don't let anyone else use the word in any other way. So do we have a destiny beyond the struggling to be free of our fate? Okay. But first we must ask, what's the signs of being caught or being fated? And what possible way can we say that there is a destiny? And what are the signs and clues that point to that destiny? Okay, and these are the clues or signs that you're encountering a Pathologos. Let's finish this. There's only one more page. Okay, so being free of our fate, is there a higher destiny? What are the signs of being fated or being caught or being stuck? Fate means it's just going to end that way. It's always going to end that way. It's fate. It's stuck. And is there anything to suggest a destiny, and what is that, so we can know what our highest goal is? Where shall we turn? It was this interest that brought many to the Delphic Oracle, but it was silenced many years ago, and to revive this interest we need a new Oracle for Delphi. Send in your applications below. I don't know. Not to me, I don't know, but we need one. If you are of that nature, please. The Oracle at Delphi, people came to ask these sorts of questions, but it was silenced many years ago. And to revive this interest would be a reversal of a most major kind. Good, so do it. Young Delphi out there. We can say this much. Of course, the Oracle at Delphi would need the wisdom and knowledge, as well as the understanding and the ability to communicate it, and the ability to navigate any Pathologos blocks and problems they have in communicating that, and not just communicating the highest destiny, maybe even help them to reach the highest destiny. In other words, what a modern day Oracle at Delphi would be is a philosophical midwife. So, lots of those around would be a reversal of a most major kind. We can say this much: there is no mystery about discovering the nature of a Pathologos problems, because if you are not pursuing your noblest of goals, you have a Pathologos problem. Whatever convinced you that you can't or shouldn't strive for that ideal is the Pathologos belief. It is that belief that undermines one's choices and distorts one's style of life, as it depreciates one's goals. The signs and characteristics of encountering the Pathologos are the following. Setting primary goals as number one. Setting secondary goals as if they are primary. Go for the best. Don't settle for second best. Number two, making practical issues. You're not here to dig a big hole. You're here to do this. We've gone through this. Number three, balloons. And also, number three, failing to achieve one's goals with excellence. I always think of Maradona's hand of God in the World Cup. Would you want to win that way? Would you want to win by cheating? Where Maradona from Argentina famously went up to headbutt the ball and used his hand and handballed it before they had video technology, and he would never have reached it without cheating. He may not have won without cheating, but is that winning with excellence? Number four, not preparing adequately for goals. Are you at school without your pants on again? Like that dream. Simple enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Losing concentration and energy. Number 6. Being unable to resist distractions. Number 7. Blaming others or making excuses for not achieving. You have the power. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Being unable to maintain the goal. Number 9. Functioning ideally in a crisis, but experiencing stress and anxiety before and after such events. And number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Letting opportunities go. Which is interesting because what we just reviewed was, given what we've understood about Pathologos and the principle of Pathologos as the human condition, we can make some conclusions about why we're here and where we came from and where we're going. And in that section, it says, well, that would mean that there was an opportunity for further. Let's go back and read it. Because I remember it had like really poetic language. It stood out as an unusual word. Further, F-U-R-T-H. Yes, here we go. Right, we're on the right spot. Oh, look at this. Hooray.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Good point. And that's why we're learning the art of philosophical midwifery. And I did mean to press that drop button. Okay, Plato cites the value of gaining an earthly existence, since it is only here that the soul can gain a training in these very things. Here we go. Prior to this existence, it is said, the soul missed an opportunity to see the most splendid and blessed of mysteries. And if it is to complete its spiritual evolution, it needs to return to where it can gain the necessary training. So this highest art, the thing we're forced to do, the things that we will not be able to do anything else well unless we address, the art and the activity we're here to master, which may itself just be the opening to the next stage, which is the question, is there after escaping fate, is there a second thing we have to do to reach our destiny? Psalmist opportunity. Completes evolution. Interesting. Yeah, this is the art that turns us around. We have to focus on understand the forces and ideas that operate in our problems. Turn around, that's what we call ousia. That ousia can go all the way to touching being. Okay. Right, so we missed an opportunity for some, what was it called? I guess this is important because this is the training. Somehow in this art, not only are we freeing ourselves, but we're preparing ourselves to here. The soul missed an opportunity too. See the most splendid. Make it red. Our soul, if we're here, we missed the opportunity, so there was a single opportunity, it sounds like, to see the most splendid and blessed of mysteries. So it's here that we gain the training to do this. So what? Well, ultimately our training, there was 2 parts mentioned earlier as well, which I guess is addresses that question. Is there a second thing after being freed, or was it quo vadis? Now what? What? Right. Letting opportunities go by. Is it a coincidence that I guess one of the foundational, or if not the foundational cause for our soul being here to begin with, is we missed an opportunity to see one of the most splendid of mysteries? Which is interesting because that can put it higher than being or ousia. Because that would be like, we missed an opportunity to have the greatest experience. That's the second hypothesis. That's ousia. That's being. That's the thing the appearance of our loved ones imitated. That's what our soul is born seeking for us to even be able to get a Pathologos. But he didn't say highest experience. He said mystery. And if even ousia is understandable, then even ousia has the logos. Logos might be primary. So logos is not only the way of turning around at every stage for our development, individually and as a society, logos might take us beyond even experience. How do we move through ideas? Questions. Or solving mysteries. Wow. Solving mysteries. So, we were unable to, or we missed an opportunity to participate in a greater mystery even than being, perhaps. Maybe it was some faulty relationship with being, or maybe we reached out and touched an ousia beyond being and we were shocked by a self beyond even qualities. I don't know. But we somehow missed a mystery that our Pathologos somehow trains us to be able to address. And missing opportunities is also the very last type of thing, number 10, for evidence of a problem. So if you even address this kind of problem, so not only doing all these wonderful things, primary goal, most significant, with excellence, prepared well, concentration and energy in it, never getting distracted, never blaming others. You're maintaining the goal. You're cool before and after as well. But also, on top of all that, you're taking every opportunity that comes up. Holy crap. Sounds like you're preparing or nurturing yourself or educating yourself to be able to take whatever opportunity was missed that caused this incarnation to begin with. Says Plato, and our reflection here. Isn't that interesting? The last and highest standard might be the hyparxis, or the transition into what we're here to finally do. Maybe it's a question. There are essential differences between goals and dreams. When we speak of someone having goals, we mean that the goals are of such a kind that to attain them in midwifery, this kind of goal, to attain them, it is necessary to go through some process, some steps or stages. And if there are none, then the goal remains unformulated and unattainable, much like a dream. All right, so steps. A process and steps. Equally, there's a difference between difficulties that, there are difficulties in the problem. We talked about that. Don't take the backpack and dump other difficulties. Sacrifices, hardships, and various struggles are to be expected, but they vary with each goal. But the Pathologos blocks the attainments of goals, creates struggles that are not part of the reality, and repeats the same goddamn mistakes of the past, while also its roots remain unknown. In the quest for those most meaningful goals, one can expect that there will be many manifestations of the Pathologos. So in the quest along those steps, expect the manifestations. It is important, again, no blame, no picking enemies, no fighting, no suing or putting in jail or murdering or genociding, anything like that. We're expecting mistakes. We're expecting even not just simple mistakes of reason or something, but mistakes you repeat. So people are going to get annoyed, and you might even get annoyed at yourself and you don't know why, because you don't recognize you're repeating a certain sort of mistake. If there's ever going to be a justification for the evil game of assigning people as being evil, blame, punishment, violence, oppression, subjugation, pathologos way of being, there's ever going to be any justification. Not only are they missed the mark, they made a mistake, but they're repeating the same mistake and they seem to be unable to learn about it. That's literally the definition of evil. Only they don't recognize it as a pathologos. They say it's a multi-dimensional spiritual force that doesn't want to follow reason because of its bad nature. What we are learning is it's our good nature that blocks us from participating in reason, because it's a good and universal. So you never punish it because you're just punishing existence, because it's all humans. It's what we have as human beings. It's good that we seek truth, beauty, and justice, or being. It's good and necessary. So we have a good and noble and necessary nature. The evil side B, the evil way of approaching problems, is to say, oh no, the reason why you're blocked from reason isn't your good nature that has been usurped necessarily so that you can learn an art as part of your human soul's evolution. No, it's because you're not following reason, or you're blocked from reason in a repeating mistake. Even better, even worse than a single mistake, is because you're evil. You don't want reason. You can't be reasoned with. You're a savage. You're a cockroach. You're a rodent. That's evil. In religion, it's rodent. In politics, it's unclean. In whatever, it's criminal. In the justice system, it's selfish. Every system has their word to vilify the nature of humans, to justify playing the pathologos, sadistic bullshit. And it's all wrong. In principle and in reality, demonstrably and verifiably. In fact, the demonstration and verification of the nature of self with understanding and the experience of ousia is why we're here, or purification and perfection. Write all that out and send it in an email to your mum and your friends and everyone you know and all your teachers. It's time to get on board. I mean, it has been written, now we do it. What's the saying? The voice of every generation is shaped by the ideas of the people from the previous one. So yeah, capitalism was Adam Smith and Nazism was Nietzsche and whatever they say. Well, this guy's just passed away, so we're on the clock, folks. Time to do it. So yeah, so if there's ever any sort of justification for evil or punishment, it's this, and what we're discovering is this is exactly what we need to look for and create the conditions for. So punishment or blame is a injustice against being human. Okay, it's interesting. And again, put that in the email that goes out to the whole mailing list. And you can buy mailing lists. Like, I think Facebook sells details of people. You could buy other mailing lists with like millions of people and include them in it as well. Let them know. It's time to do it. Get on the ball now. Previous generation, dude, these are the ideas. Makes sense. Let's stop doing the punishment thing as antithetical to humanity itself and what we're here for, and let's do what we're here for. Okay, in the quest for, yes, so we will expect there will be manifestations, okay? We're not mad at ourselves or mean to ourselves or putting ourselves down or chastising ourselves or anyone else. We're expecting it, okay? And we chart the many manifestations of the Pathologos, and we connect them to the stages or levels that we have identified to reach our goals. This is this part. You're learning about what's inherent. Like breaking it down, like you're exploring, there's this part and this part and this part as a oneness in the false Pathologos view of myself that I can't remember and can't see because I didn't put words on it, because of the wordless part and the amnesia part that we read earlier. Okie smoky, more coffee? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I get a coffee and who is it? It's the flamingo. He loves the coffee. Go on, have some coffee. Okay. Oh no. So we chart them and we match them to levels and stages of that we go through. Okay. Each of these manifestations would then become the object of an exploration. It's interesting. So half the time you're doing the thing and half the time you're reflecting on the thing. Sounds like a balanced life. That's a thing that I've been having to remind myself of a lot lately. Especially playing music. It's like seems to be sometimes not enough hours in the day to do everything, but spend as much time reflecting on the thing as you spend doing the thing. Should be a principle. It's a 3-day work week. That's more in harmony with the logos. That gives us 3 days to work towards our highest, most significant goals, and then 3 days of the week to reflect on everything that happened. Or maybe it's just morning and afternoon. How about that? then one day to clean all of the statues of me and the flamingo and the phoenix baby, who taught everyone how to do this thing, giving us this 3-day work week where we reflect half the time and we do the thing half the time and we clean my statues half the time. No, on that seventh day, like the seventh day he rested, the seventh day he worshipped me. No, we can do something else on that last day. We'll think of something. Each of the yes. Right, so each of the manifestations will be the object of the exploration in midwifery, and the set of the manifestations would then be traced back to the experiences in our past. Again, past playing out in our present to let us know of our past to solve the puzzle. That's seeing the world as a puzzle, that's side A. Trace back to experiences that help shape these formative pathologos beliefs. Sorry, I'm squishing Stuffy. But that's what you're for, to be squished. The unity of these beliefs is the pathologos. Okay, so there are experiences that happened that shaped the beliefs. The unity of those beliefs is the pathologos. That unity will be expressible in terms of the basic and fundamental idea of the self. This is what you think is the self. A unity of these beliefs from these experiences that shaped your pathologos. And they come up, and each aspect of it or level of manifestation can be mapped to levels of progress towards your most meaningful goal, which is neat. Showing us what? This is literally showing us the intelligibility of goals, the logos, problems, the soul, incarnation, the understandability and experienceability in remembering Usia or our past before we were incarnated, understanding what we need to do for our future, maybe even tapping into that and experiencing it and testing out in experience the mastery of the logos and whatever is needed for any of those experiences in meditation, maybe. What are we doing? We're doing something that can only be done here. What are we doing? Let's keep reading. With the rejection of many of those false beliefs, a new and more mature quest can begin. Or this one. No, the first one. A new quest can begin. And then I press the button. And then I find where I am on the page. Into the most fundamental question. What, after all, is the nature of this being we call man? We've been talking a lot about it today. Is man a mere collection of beliefs and opinions? Dear God, no. Or is there something more? Yes. Do I have a thumbs up? Do I have 2 thumbs up? That gives me fireworks. Does the process of midwifery bring one to recognize that we can be rational? What are we doing here was the question I asked a minute ago. That we can only do in this activity. Again, adding to the idea that Plato and Pierre helped us see in other ways that this is what we're here for. Well, we can only do this here. What are we doing? We are seeing the rationality of reality. Reality is understandable. And beyond understandable, knowable, touchable in that Usia experience. In fact, every level of development we experience, necessarily, it's the human part of it. So that knowability and understandability together is the word intelligibility. So what we call rational is not just thinking or academic or logic. It's also psychic or experiential. Logos is both. And maybe even goes beyond both, which is fascinating. So what? This chapter began with saying it's entirely possible to verify for yourself that we live in a rational reality. This, what we've just done today, what we've been doing, is the thing that allows you to see that. How important is it to realize that? Could you ever justify anyone doing side B, seeing experience as an excuse to inflict punishment so I can be the tyrant and get a sadistic thrill of lying about the innate badness of another person to placate my own Pathologos ignorance? Can you ever justify that if you know reality is understandable? How could you ever pick anything other than side A? If it's understandable, intelligible, rational, then let's understand it. No beliefs, no opinions, no picking sides, no voting, just understanding. Come on. Why not? No divisions, no religions, none of that. All of the institutions that play that Pathologos game of intimidation, blaming the person as the original cause, saying it's an innate badness, and therefore justifying inflicting suffering, which does everything wrong and is a lie about the self. The very opposite nature of the self is what we're here to discover, and the activity is the very opposite of that. If you realize that we live in a rational world, how could you ever choose anything other than understanding? It's all puzzles, all the way up. And this is the only kind of activity that can show it and demonstrate it, provably, to everyone. Why? Because we all have problems. It's what we've just been realizing and reading is the human issue, the human quest to solve that problem. Does midwifery bring one to recognize that we can be rational and therefore a worthwhile singular purpose to focus on? And that is a rational way. Does it bring one to recognize that we can be rational and that this rational method and way of seeing is the start? Start of a better way of being? It's a promise as well. There's more beyond the door. No, wait. You have to understand the significance and problem of blame and reject it. What do they say what do designers say? Do you condemn? You have to condemn condemning. That gets you in the door. But at the other side of the room, there is an even bigger door. That's the metaphor I'm going with for some reason. Because this is just the beginning. I guess perhaps... Right, the process is the beginning. Right, you have to be in the process necessarily. Because any meaningful goal will surface, as we've seen, some level of block to your logos in your development. So you're not really learning anything properly or with excellence or a meaningful primary goal with excellence unless you're in the game. So we can say that this is the way of the beginning. Does that way of being lead to the mystery of our existence? Once you're in this game, I think even before you get free, you'd be asking that question, quo vadis? Quo vadis? Holy crap. There's what? There's being, and we experience it, and its reflection causes our goddamn problems? What? Hang on. Why are we here? What's going on? We're rational too. And the more we partake in rationality, the more goodness and benefit we have. And that's simply seeing for ourselves that not only we live in a rational universe, but a beneficial or providential or friendly one. Why did I make the this gesture. Does this way of being lead to the mystery of our existence? Indeed, we can say that midwifery uses... Okay, this is the thing. This is the last paragraph. Everything we've built up until now, including it is entirely verifiable that we live in a rational and caring universe. Which is the opening of the whole chapter. We've gone through a lot, and we've done a big review today. My Australian accent, mate. Excuse me. And right now we've talked about how this uncovers the rationality, and by participating it ourselves and with our friends, we can see that it's tied to benefit as well. But here's the rub. Midwifery uses our Pathologos problems to introduce us to the need for a rational way of seeing. Everyone has a Pathologos problem. Midwifery uses it to introduce us to the need for a rational way of seeing, and then provides the rational way of seeing, or the art of the logos, or the art of midwifery. In other words, if it's very, very important for us to recognize we live in a rational and solvable or providential, a rational and caring universe, so that we will always have as a principle, always pick side A, never have any institutions or any interpersonal relationships or even relationships with yourself based on inflicting suffering or judgment, or suffering or punishment or blame or retributive justice. That's how important it is to see that we live in a rational and caring universe. But if everyone needs to see it for the collective change that we need to see in our world, how do we show people that? Here's the rub: everyone has a goddamn Pathologos. Not goddamn, God-given, in a sense. Okay, forget that metaphor. Everyone has a Pathologos. Midwifery uses our Pathologos problems to show us the need to learn a rational way of seeing. That rational way of seeing is midwifery, which shows us we live in a rational and caring universe, as well as showing us that we can solve our problems. So long as we condemn condemning and open ourselves to see the world as puzzles to solve together in the most fun, most excellent way. If there were a magic pill that would magically remove the Pathologos, we still wouldn't take it, my friend. We would still use this method, because through it, our as in, it's all of us, it's the self method. It doesn't belong to anyone, it's open to all. That's one of the mark of being a principle. We would still use our method because through it we learn a way of understanding. That you wouldn't get if you just popped the magic pill. We can see that even in the worst of man's conditions, everyone is meaningful. Even in the worst of man's conditions, it's all needed to be solved and addressed in the highest, most fair, most excellent way. We can do it because we can see through this way of understanding that even in the worst of man's conditions, there is still a rationality. That's literally the story of the Iliad and the story of Achilles. It's not in the text, forget the Achilles stuff, but it is. And we can read it on the channel sometime. So much to do on the channel. Exciting stuff, but worthwhile. Hey, maybe we can read the Iliad on that 7th day together. Anyway, we can see that even the worst, because Achilles was the worst man, that was the whole point. We can see, and the family curse, his family is special and chosen by God, and his mother is half divine. That's my family belief, my family religion, my cultural, my kind of racism, it's Pathologos. My Pathologos is special. The family curse represented as in mythology. As one makes the transition that we read earlier is the foundational to all mythology. How artfully that's done and how well it's done and whether the author knows us what they're doing is different, but it's the transition from Pathologos to Logos. Breaking the family curse. The loyalty to the family clan Pathologos way of being. We can see that even in the worst of man's conditions, there is still rationality, but it is of a restricted kind. Okay, and this is the last sentence of the chapter. The only difference between the wisest and the worst among us. Already opening to the sentence, amazing. If we need to solve, if there is a solution to the human problem, it better damn well include the wisest among us and the worst, and show how we can all be benefited because every life matters. Everyone is meaningful. So already, everyone should be tuned in on the planet. Hackers, Anonymous, send this stream out to everyone on the planet. This is the thing we need to understand. Most of all, get to work. The only difference between the wisest and the worst among us is that one doesn't know one's premises are false, and so acts out the implications of that ignorant premise and fails to comprehend just how much of one's life is determined within fixed boundaries. So there's the unlooked at causes and roots, the amnesia, the wordlessness, all sections of this chapter. If you don't realize how stuck you are, you think that you're free, or you think this is inevitable, but you don't see how fixed to one singular way of being you are, because you don't know the premise was false. That's it. False premise, play out the implications, just like we talked about with meditation, just like we talked about with playing out fantasies, tangents. Also dreams. That is what there is an original cause you can look at and avoid having to play out the implications, because the implications are nothing other than clues to the puzzle in a caring and rational universe about that cause, about that premise, about that idea of yourself that's blocking you, about your destiny, highest purpose. Premise or definition acts it out or demonstrates itself in various ways. Only the worst of us, false premise, plays it out and doesn't realize how blocked they are and how much of one's life is determined within fixed boundaries, how stuck and ignorant and fated they are. That's the worst of us. So the only difference between the wisest and worst of us is the worst does that, which means the wisest must be... It's not there. So it's a bad book, awful book. We've been wasting our time. It didn't complete the analogy. Oh, Jesus. What are we doing? Unless, this is just a big gag, by the way. Well, don't laugh yet. I haven't told you the punchline. He didn't leave it out. It's for us to solve. You to solve. What would be the analogical equivalent to that? Do you know about analogies? That was one of the sections. I think, was it? Analogy? Or logos was one of them. We talked about analogies because our problem is a false analogy applying to the present and our projection because it's similar enough to the origin scene. It's a false analogy. What we are talking about here at the end well, what? How's it false? Well, yeah, here it's saying, well, if you were to look at the falseness itself or the pathologos as, or the worst of us, analogically, what would you come up with? As a way of you participating and reading. And now, if you do that, we can go all the way back to the start of this chapter we're reviewing and see if we have gained what we need to answer the question or the promise of the opening. Chapter 2, the Pathologos, the opening. It is entirely possible to verify for oneself that we are part of a caring and intelligible universe. The verification is a kind of proof, since it is a way of understanding. Have we been learning a way of understanding? And is that way of understanding, and perhaps that way of understanding alone, what is needed to prove or verify that we live in a rational and caring universe? Rational and knowable, intelligible has both. The verification is a kind of proof, since it is a way of understanding, wink wink, that is based upon a realization that our mind constantly communicates with us and for our benefit. The communications from the mind are as profound as they are utterly appropriate to our circumstances. For while the scope of the mind is pervasive, mind's everywhere, its precision is always directed to what is most personally significant. We will demonstrate that our choice of goals the problems we face, the daydreams or fantasies we have, and the dreams that visit us in our sleep, each and every one of them are like doorways. We talked about that name metaphor earlier, didn't we? Into the going through the door thing. Each and every one of them are like doorways into the richest source of insights into our life.
Wow.
What we discover through these insights is that the mind itself provides ample evidence for its own goodness and intelligibility. So what started with caring and intelligible, it becomes goodness and intelligibility. So we can see caring or benefit is tied to goodness or moving us towards the good. And the way we prove that we live in a intelligible and good, caring universe is just by paying attention to mind itself. Using our mind to know our mind. And in doing so, we learn a new way of understanding. And our question is, did we conclude with enough to do that? Have we either A, seen it's entirely possible to make that verification by our understanding of this chapter, or have we actually seen enough because we've been going through it and testing it and practicing it ourselves, maybe even reviewing other people's progress, and verify that, yeah, each moment is a message being communicated in the most profound way to me. The only thing I have to do is match it in receptivity or wonder and curiosity about the nature of the self-logos and the self. Reason, self, mind, being. And what is, after all, the nature of this being we call man? Did you see it all? Was it enough? Is there potentially enough if you go through it and apply the dialectic wherever you can? Find a list of things, organize it, could you do a dialectic on wisdom? Just using the material, the words from this chapter? These are the questions we are left with, and we will carry with us, and we will ponder, and we will work on, and we will review, and we will share with our good friends over coffee. At the end of chapter 2, thank you so much for going on this crazy, wild, amazing, really super cool adventure. And we're just on chapter 2. There are even more chapters to come. Wow. And I feel like we could review this whole chapter again and again, but let's keep moving. In the next one, we can start in chapter 3. Wow. Do you have questions? What do you make? Please leave comments in the comment section or in the Discord. What did you get out of chapter 2? Do you think you were able to answer the question promised at the beginning? What was it like to solve that puzzle, that short one, find the equivalent of wisdom? But also, could you do a dialectic on wisdom? If you saw that the whole purpose of our life, purification and perfection, or removing the pathologos and using that what next training to find the true logos, if it's the dialectic in both, then it's only a single activity. The art of midwifery and philosophy is the art of the dialectic. If you've seen enough in this chapter to recognize that, can you do maybe a dialectic on the last term he gives us to define? He didn't define it himself, but maybe he's given us what we need to do it, and therefore complete this analogy. And in doing a dialectic on wisdom, can you create more terms? Not just the three negatives for the worst person. Maybe in doing your dialectic on wisdom, you get like 8 key terms of wisdom that you can then add more to the other one. And you might be so chuffed at your dialectic that you might do a little cartoon to represent each of the key elements and their relationship with cartoon characters. Or in a story. And maybe even you can go one step further, not just create a work of art that represents your dialectic, but maybe you can do another one, or even within that, of what we recognize as the archetype within all archetypal narratives, the movement from the collective to the individual, there was a bunch of types of movement within drama, but essentially they're representations of the movement from Pathologos to Logos.
A win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win. So yeah, and if you do, please share with us on Discord. Hey, maybe even do a presentation. This is my art. These are the key terms. This is how it is reflected in this dialectic I've done on wisdom and its opposite. Oh, and by the way, this is the development or providence that I went through as I learned to participate in that rational way of thinking and creating, demonstrating in and proving to myself and demonstrating to everyone I'm doing this presentation for or making this video for or whatever, doing this art, presenting my art for, showing that participating in this kind of level of understanding and reason and reflection makes you better, makes you good, makes you more in all of the ways that you went through. Here's my art, here are the key terms, here's how it reflects my dialectic, and this is what I went through. Showing that the dialectic or the logos and providence are connected, which is something you can only perceive if the principles are there and there's you going through it. And then on the other end, doing the art and sharing it with us. Remember, sharing your highest vision and understanding is part of the challenge that the author gave us in this chapter 2. If you really want to surface the Pathologos completely, not only reach all of the things we talked about, but share it, talk about it. That's a challenge the author gave us, and it's a challenge to ourselves. A necessary one if we want to play this game with excellence. And if you don't take that challenge, you're not playing with excellence. There's a mark of the Pathologos. That's one of the 10 things on the fridge. Oh, time for a talk. I better call my friend and have a coffee. So, do any of those things. And, feel free to share in the comments or on, as we said, the Discord. And yeah, exciting stuff. Thank you once again. And make sure you buy all of those email lists from all of those capitalist, dodgy, whatever, Facebook, Instagrams, so you can put everything you realized and your dialectic and your art in that email. Send it to everyone, because this is what we're here for. Objectively, necessarily, but in a way you don't have to believe anyone. You are here to verify for yourself. And the fact that you have problems shows you and forces you to reflect. Shows you the need for a new rational way of seeing, this new way of understanding, as well as provides a method for that rational way of seeing and understanding that you would need to learn, even if I offered you a magic pill to jump at the end. No, it's the learning of the art is why we're here. So let's get on it. And once we've seen it, there's no going back. No going back to side B, seeing reality as an excuse to inflict suffering as part of the Pathologos drama. No more. No more vilifying of humans or division or inequality or any of that nonsense. It's all equal, it's all the same, it's all this, it's all the logos. And do that mass email to everyone. Lots of fun. Thank you so much. Next time, chapter 3. Oh, exciting. Where are we going to go from here? We've already had our minds blown and discovered what's so significant. Thank you once again. Thank you to Baby Stuffy Phoenix and Flamingo featured today. Thank you for him. I think I did a dinosaur roar. So these are the chief players and they're taking a bow. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye, and everybody wait. Bye.